tonight, the lead up to an election that's attracted a lot of attention and not all of it good. Who will lead the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations?
When we invested our $3 million, we've already made over 400% or 500% return on that.
A look at how First Nations are investing in recreational cannabis.
I am retiring with no regrets. It's been a great run, and now it's time for me to move on to the next chapter of my life.
And fans wish farewell to the first Inuk of the NHL. Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Melissa Ridgen. It's been less than a week since the legalization of cannabis in Canada, and the cash is flowing in for Winnipeg shops. A handful of First Nations in Manitoba are getting in on the action too. And as Brittany Hobson shows us, there are some already reaping the benefits.
Peguis First Nation is hoping to profit from the recreational cannabis industry. It's the largest First Nation community in Manitoba, and like others, it struggles with unemployment, poverty, and housing.
People complain about us being a burden on taxpayers. Here's an opportunity for us to generate our own economic growth and sustainability.
Peguis has teamed up with the group GrowForce to create a retail store on its urban reserve in Winnipeg. The company will help oversee facilities and train workers, up to 200 to be exact. It's been a week since Meta opened its doors, but partner Opaskwayak Cree Nation is already seeing the green.
Well, just on the share value side, when we invested our $3 million, we've already made over 400% or 500% return on that, and we've paid back some of that original investment.
OCN is one of the largest investors in the Meta brand store, run by National Access Cannabis. Chief Christian Sinclair says revenue will address some of the long-standing issues in the community.
It allows us to be able to strategically take those dollars and then sell shares or take the revenues from our businesses and reinvest back into our community on much-needed resources for education, culture, language, rehabilitation, healthcare, any social aspect of OCN.
National Access Cannabis will open 10 stores in Manitoba, an additional 4 on First Nations, including 1 in OCN. Sinclair says that store will create 12 jobs. Partnerships with First Nations was an important aspect of NEC's business plan.
What we want to do is work with them and their communities, make sure that the stores that are built are done locally, that the staff that come to the stores are local and from those communities, and we basically are sharing the operations of the business.
The decision to get into the pot business was easy for OCN.
When we discussed it at our table with our elders, not once did they call it an illegal drug. Every single one of them had a story to share of someone in their family using it to treat cancer, diabetes, lupus, etc., and they referred to it as Muskegee or medicine in Cree.
Sinclair says if they didn't get involved, users would continue purchasing off the black market. OCN is expected to open their Meta branch on the reserve at the end of this month. Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
A Winnipeg organization that's been offering refuge for people struggling with addictions, mental health, and homelessness is expanding. The Main Street Project has been the front lines of addiction treatment and providing emergency shelter for 46 years, most of it in this location. But they bought the vacant Mitchell Fabrics building on October 8th, and the acquisition adds 36,000 square feet to the agency. Renovations are expected to start in January with a completion date of December 2019. Peer advocate Phil Goss says it's a big step up from their current 2,100 square feet.
One of my biggest complaints, not a complaint but an observation, was that people weren't being helped. They were being supported with food and warmth, but that was pretty well it. And now they're going to have all kinds of opportunities to do all kinds of things, and like work programs and counseling programs and just all kinds of things to help people up.
In Saskatchewan, elections for the Federation of Indigenous Sovereign Nations on Wednesday continues to heat up amid a police investigation. And as APTN's Amber Bernard reports, one tribal council has had enough.
Elections will take place October 24th and 25th for the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations, more commonly known as FSIN. The FSIN represents 74 First Nations across Saskatchewan, and they receive federal dollars for those communities. Leadership from each represented community will vote for office of the chief, office of the first vice chief, and office for the third vice chief. We tried reaching out to Chief Bobby Cameron, who is seeking a second term as office of the chief for FSIN, and his opponent, Delbert Wapas, who is also running for that position. Both have not responded to APTN. And what's happening at FSIN is a bit of a mystery. Last month, police were called into the FSIN offices for reasons still unknown to APTN. However, police did say there is an investigation taking place, but no further comments were made. The Saskatoon Tribal Council, which is composed of 7 First Nations, said this week that the FSIN no longer represents them and says the FSIN has lost its focus. Amber Bernard, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
A man accused of killing 2 British Columbia girls in the 1970s is on trial now in Vancouver, but Gary Handlin is only on trial for one of those deaths at the BC Supreme Court currently. Tina House reports.
It's the opening day of the trial for 70-year-old Gary Handlin. He was charged in the deaths of 12-year-old Monica Jack, as well as 11-year-old Catherine Mary Herbert. However, the jury is only expected to hear about the case involving Monica Jack. It was on May the 6th, 1978, that Monica left her home in Merritt, BC, for a bike ride. She vanished without a trace. A month later, her bike was found just a kilometer from her house. Her body was also discovered in 1995 on a nearby mountain. At this press conference, after Handlin was arrested in 2014, Monica's mother, Madeline, spoke to the media.
But with Monica, she was a beautiful little girl right from the time she was born. She was always happy. Her laughter was a tingly laugh that none of my other children have. She was well loved by relatives and her sisters and brothers and friends.
Gary Taylor Handlin's violent criminal past goes back to 1969, according to court records. He was convicted in 4 sexual assault cases by the time he was 32 years old. Madeline's mother says she remembers seeing Gary Handlin near Merritt around the time of her daughter's disappearance.
When I think back, it wasn't easy. And even today, it's not easy because no matter what happens and no matter what you do in your life, that hurt never goes away.
The trial is expected to last for the next 10 weeks. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
We've got to take a quick break, but here's a sneak peek at a story that we're working on for you.
I'm Kent Driscoll, and this is Cape Dorset Nunavut. All this week, we'll be bringing you stories from this South Baffin Island community of 1,400 people. We'll show you just how big an effect a new school can have in a small Nunavut town. We'll meet the famed printmakers of Cape Dorset and show you how they make their world-famous creations. And we'll get a first-hand look at this year's print collection and the history that made it possible. Cape Dorset Nunavut, all this week on APTN National News.
Starting off on the east coast, we've got 8 and rain in St. John's, 9 and rain in Halifax. To northern Quebec and Labrador, Inujuak is -6 with some sunshine, Nain -1 with the mix of sun and cloud. Saguenay is 3 as well as Sept-Îles. Gaspe is 6 and sunny. Peterborough's 10 and rain, 12 and some rain in Toronto. 1 and some snow in Big Trout Lake, 3 and some rain or snow in Thunder Bay. -2 in Churchill with a mix of sun and cloud, +2 in Norway House with mostly sunny skies. Lots of sun in southern Manitoba, 3s for Barons River and Princess Harbour, 5 for Winnipeg, 10 for Brandon. 13s for Saskatoon and Regina and Estevan, lots of sun in southern Saskatchewan. 7 and sunny in Uranium City, 9 in Buffalo Narrows, 8 in La Ronge, and 10 in Meadow Lake with sunshine. Welcome back. People in northern Manitoba were left feeling stranded when it was announced this summer that Greyhound was ending bus services. But there's a new plan in the works. CTV Winnipeg has that story.
Many Manitobans living in the northern part of the province can breathe a sigh of relief as several bus lines step in to fill the void Greyhound will soon leave behind. Wasquesie Peak First Nation Chief Elwood Zastry says a lot of people in his community north of Swan River rely on bus service.
A lot of our people have a hard time with medical to come to the city, and they have no vehicles, so this been going for a long time for our people coming from the north.
Greyhound announced in July it was ending its passenger bus and freight services across the prairies on October 31st. Since then, several bus lines have been working to fill the gaps in Manitoba, including most recently Kelsey Bus Lines in the PA.
There's more than medical, there's students that are attending University College of the North. They're already calling me to find out when they can get on the bus.
Kelsey Bus Lines is owned and operated by a Siniscat casino located in Opaskwayak Cree Nation. It currently operates as a charter service, and come November 1st, it will be adding daily passenger routes from Thompson and Flin Flon to Winnipeg. CEO Suzanne Barbeau-Bracegirdle says they want to make the transition as easy as possible.
We kept the same rates that Greyhound currently has, and we kept the same times, and we kept the same locations. What we didn't want to disrupt anything that Greyhound set up.
Meanwhile, Maple Bus Line stationed in Selkirk is also getting ready to launch passenger routes to the north.
The owner and the investors that we have on board, they felt a need to want to help the local Manitobans to get across Manitoba.
General Manager Maisie Hicks says they'll have 8 buses up and running with a cost similar to Greyhound's. The main depot is located in Winnipeg and will service the PA, Thompson and Cross Lake to start, with routes beginning October 29th.
We just want to see what the next 2-3 months bring for us and how the business is evolving.
Stephanie Seco, CTV News, Winnipeg.
The federal government has been holding closed-door sessions on racism. Heritage Minister Pablo Rodriguez attended 3 of them in Toronto, and Rodriguez claims that racism isn't part of his vocabulary and said that Canada is not a racist society. The NDP took him to task on that comment in question period on Friday.
By now, surely the minister knows that it is wrong to say that there is no systemic discrimination in Canada. Systemic racism took its root in this country the moment white settlers came and began the colonization process. To claim that there's no systemic racism in Canada is a slap in the face of Indigenous peoples. Will the minister do the honourable thing and admit that he was wrong and apologize?
The Honourable Minister for Canadian Heritage.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians understand that diversity is our strength, and while we have much to celebrate, we know that there are still real challenges for many people in this country. And let me be very clear, Mr. Speaker, throughout history, and even today, there are people and communities who experience systemic racism, oppression, discrimination, preventing them from fully participating in our society. And we know that these experiences are still felt today by many Canadians, and we can and we must, Mr. Speaker, do better.
Member for Vancouver.
Affordable food is a difficult thing to come by in northern Canada, and last year the federal government created a working group. They had one job: fix the Nutrition North program. But 5 Inuit organizations pulled out of the consultations, which led to questions in the House on Friday.
It was clear from the start that the Liberals had no intention of listening. The consultations were, quote, just tokenism and optics so they can justify the changes that they want to make. The government's failure has real consequences. Tokenism does not feed children. When will the Liberals get back to the table and take this issue seriously?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Inuit organizations have an important and unique perspective to offer to Nutrition North Canada. That's why we've engaged with them. We have valued their expertise. We valued their knowledge in this process. Their engagement has really been vital for us in developing our new initiative and providing thoughtful solutions on how we move forward with food security for Northerners. We're going to continue to work with Inuit right across the North, as we will with all all Indigenous groups and all Northerners to ensure that the revisions to Nutrition North are what people are asking.
The Honourable.
A new study reveals that people who eat more organic food may be less likely to develop cancer. French researchers looked at the diets of more than 60,000 adults over the course of 4 years. Those who ate most organic food were 25% less likely to develop cancer. Authors of the study think this is because organic foods contain less chemicals compared to conventional products. Previous research has shown that pesticides are cancer-causing in humans. A massive caravan of Central American migrants streaming through southern Mexico en route to the U.S. has swelled to more than 5,000. The migrants have been battling sweltering heat, with many carrying children on their backs. They say they're fleeing violence from their homelands in Honduras and Guatemala. When Mexico refused them mass entry on a bridge, many jumped into the water, desperate enough to swim or float across the river. U.S. President Donald Trump says the migrants are not welcome, and he warns if he has to, he'll deploy the military to stop them. Mail wasn't picked up or delivered in 4 cities today as the union representing 50,000 postal workers launched rotating strikes across the country. The job action began after negotiators failed to reach a new contract agreement before the union's strike deadline. CTV's Vanessa Lee has the latest.
A tense start to the day in Edmonton after a truck crossed the picket line.
Shame on you! Shame!
Postal workers stood their ground, ensuring no letters or parcels went in or out of the plant today.
This is never something that we want to do.
Thousands in Victoria, Edmonton, Windsor and Halifax have walked off the job for 24 hours. The Canadian Union of Postal Workers launched the rotating strikes to pressure Canada Post into accepting contract changes after 10 months of failed negotiations. Key demands include job security, better health and safety measures, and an end to forced overtime.
Carriers and rural carriers are coming to work expecting an 8-hour day, but due to the huge parcel volumes that we're seeing, we're working 10, 11 hours well into the dark.
Canada Post says it has responded to many of the issues raised.
In terms of our offer, it's significant. It's wage increases, it's benefit improvements, it's extending job security, it's asking for no concessions or rollbacks. We're not asking for employees to give anything up.
While mail is being delivered as usual in other locations, consumers are being warned of minor delays. The provinces rely on the postal system for marijuana deliveries after it became legal last week. The uncertainty is already hurting small businesses.
It's going to be costing me a little bit more because I'm not going to be charging my customers extra for this inconvenience, and I want to make sure that it gets to them on time. So I'm going to be using other shipping services.
Federal Labor Minister Patty Hajdu says she is monitoring the situation, but has given no indication Ottawa would intervene to end the rotating strikes, which are expected to continue tomorrow. Vanessa Lee, CTV News, Montreal.
We need to take another break, but first, here's the rest of tomorrow's weather forecast. Off to northern Alberta, we've got 11 in high level, lots of sunshine, 13 and sunny in Fort McMurray, 18 in sunshine in Edmonton, 17 in sunshine in Calgary, 12 in cloud in Tofino, 14 in rain in Victoria, Sandspit's rainy and 13, Fort Nelson is sunny and 7, 8 in rain in Dawson and Mayo, 9 and some rain in Whitehorse. To the Northwest Territories, lots of sunshine. Waughty and Yellowknife both 4, Fort Laird and Trout Lake both 9. Tuktoyaktuk -3, as well as Paulatuck and some rain up there. Colville Lake -1 and sunshine. -15 in Cambridge Bay, -7 in Arviat, -10 in Whale Cove. Lots of sun there as well. Resolute -18, Arctic Bay -17, Pangertung -9 and sunshine. Welcome back. The Indigenous Peoples Atlas is already being described as a bestseller, and as Todd Lamarand reports, it was recognized today on Parliament Hill in the form of a giant map.
The Atlas may be a 4-volume set of books, but on Parliament Hill it took the form of a huge map you could walk on and look for your home community.
I'm a member of Nipissing. My grandfather was from Nipissing. My grandmother was from Shawniga.
The map and atlas were produced by the Royal Geographical Society of Canada. Its CEO, John Geiger, says it's the most ambitious project the Society has ever undertaken.
Find a way to make an impact that would, help young people and help Canadians more broadly to understand the importance of the Indigenous fact of Canada.
The Atlas has already sold 8,000 copies.
It's because I think there's a real sincere appetite among Canadians towards the whole reconciliation process, and I think there's an understanding that many Canadians have that it's time that we kind of face up to the reality of Canada, which is the Indigenous peoples were the founding peoples of this country, and that the onus is on us to learn a lot more about that aspect of our country.
3 of the 4 volumes focus on each major Indigenous group, which were all represented on the Hill.
Even most Canadians don't imagine Indigenous democracies or Indigenous homelands as a part of the geographical makeup of this country. And this helps change that narrative.
This is going to be like public, right? It's going to be in the schools, it's going to be everywhere. And it shows, that the Métis Nation, is on the map. The Métis communities are on the map. So it's a very good educational tool.
Natan Obed is pleased by the Atlas's popularity.
It's great that people are reaching out and purchasing this product, and I hope that it finds its way into all of Canadian schools.
The Royal Geographical Society isn't finished with the project. It would like to translate the Atlas into Indigenous languages, but needs private sector support. Todd Lamarand, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Jordan Tootoo has announced his retirement from the NHL after 13 seasons in the league. The Trailblazer from Rankin Inlet, Nunavut, made the announcement in Brandon, Manitoba, where he spent 4 years as a junior with the Brandon Wheat Kings.
I am retiring with no regrets. It's been a great run, and now it's time for me to move on to the next chapter of my life.
Tootoo was the first Inuk ever to play in the NHL. He amassed 161 points and overtime 1,000 penalty minutes in 723 games. He played for the Nashville Predators, the Detroit Red Wings, New Jersey Devils, and the Chicago Blackhawks. He also played for minor league teams. While he struggled with alcoholism before seeking treatment, he did get his life back on track. His brother Terrence committed suicide in 2002. Tootoo says he's retiring to focus on raising awareness for suicide prevention and that which plagues the Indigenous communities.
Helping our people get back on their feet, and because I feel that's my calling.
That's all the news I have for you this evening. You can always find more anytime on our website, aptnnews.ca. I leave you with this video of a 7-meter-long whale that took 2 hours to carve up and distribute to those in the community of Utqiagvik, Alaska. I'm Melissa Ridgen, and I'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a great night.